What if the reason your life has not changed yet is because nobody actually cares if it does? Think about that for a second. No one is sitting awake at night wondering if you finally started chasing your dream. Nobody is checking if you stayed disciplined today. Nobody feels the pain of your wasted potential the way you do, and maybe that hurts. Maybe it feels cold. But what if this truth is not depressing? What if it is freedom? Because the moment you realize nobody is coming to save you is the exact moment you stop waiting. Most people spend years secretly hoping someone will notice them, hoping for support, hoping for motivation, hoping for the perfect moment. But life does not reward waiting. Life rewards movement, quiet movement, painful movement, the kind nobody claps for in the beginning. You already know what it feels like to be ignored, to feel invisible, to watch other people move ahead while you stay stuck inside your own head. You know what it feels like to promise yourself you will change, then wake up the next morning and repeat the same habits again. It slowly destroys something inside you, not all at once, little by little, until you start questioning your own worth. And the worst part is nobody notices that battle except you. People only see the outside, the smile, the jokes, the "I'm fine." They do not see the war happening in your mind every single day. The frustration of knowing you could be more but never fully becoming it. The exhaustion of carrying dreams you have not touched yet. The anger that builds every time you look in the mirror and realize time keeps moving whether you move or not. That pain changes people. Some become weaker because of it. Others become unstoppable. Right now, you are standing between those two choices. You can keep waiting for somebody to believe in you before you believe in yourself, or you can become the person who no longer needs permission to grow. Because the truth is, the world only starts respecting people after they respect themselves enough to suffer for something meaningful. Nobody cares if you wake up early. Nobody cares if you train when you are tired. Nobody cares if you keep working after failing over and over again. But one day, they will see the results, and by then, it will look like magic to them. They will call you talented, lucky, gifted. They will never understand the nights where you fought your own mind just to stay consistent. They will never see the moments you almost gave up but kept going anyway. That part stays invisible. That part belongs to you. This is where your new life actually begins. Not when you feel motivated. Not when everything becomes easy. But when you finally accept that your future is your responsibility. Fully, completely, no excuses left to hide behind, no more blaming your past, your circumstances, your fear, or the people who doubted you. Because pain can either become your prison or your training ground. Every hard moment is teaching you something. Every rejection is shaping your focus. Every lonely season is forcing you to discover who you are without attention, validation, or applause. And that is dangerous, because once a person learns how to work in silence, they stop depending on the world to keep going. That is power. Real power is waking up every day with no recognition and still refusing to quit. Real power is continuing when nobody is watching. Real power is understanding that discipline matters more than emotion. You do not need everyone to believe in you. You just need one reason strong enough to keep moving when life gets heavy. One vision that matters more than comfort. One decision that you will not stay this version of yourself forever. And if you can hold on to that decision long enough, your entire life can change. Not slowly, completely. Because the person who accepts that nobody cares becomes the person who finally works hard enough to make the world notice. And that is the part most people never understand. They think success is built in giant moments, massive breakthroughs, overnight transformations, but the truth is much uglier than that. Real change is built in the moments that feel meaningless. The mornings you did not want to get up, the nights you wanted to quit, the days nobody encouraged you, the hours where your mind told you it was pointless and you kept going anyway. That is where your future is being decided. Not when you feel confident, not when life becomes fair, right now, in the middle of this uncomfortable season. Because comfort is slowly destroying people. Every distraction is stealing pieces of their potential. Endless scrolling, endless excuses, endless waiting. People are becoming addicted to escaping their lives instead of changing them. They numb themselves because facing the truth feels painful, but deep down they know they are capable of more. They feel it every single day. That quiet frustration inside you is not random. It is your mind begging you to stop settling. You were not built to spend your whole life doubting yourself. You were not built to watch everyone else chase greatness while you stay trapped in fear. But fear becomes dangerous when you obey it for too long. It starts controlling your identity. Eventually, you stop trying because failure feels safer than disappointment. That is how dreams die, not through one big failure, through small acts of surrender repeated every day. One skipped opportunity, one excuse, one more day wasted, then suddenly years are gone, and the terrifying part is life does not pause while you figure yourself out. Time keeps moving, people keep growing, the world keeps changing. Every day you hesitate, someone else is training harder, learning faster, becoming stronger. Somebody else is building the life you keep talking about. Let that hit you, because there comes a moment where excuses stop feeling comforting and start feeling embarrassing. A moment where you get tired of hearing your own promises, tired of restarting, tired of saying tomorrow, tired of carrying potential you never use. That moment changes everything, because once a person becomes sick of their own excuses, they become dangerous. Now the focus changes. Now the standards rise. Now discipline matters more than mood. You stop asking yourself if you feel motivated and start asking yourself if you are serious. Because serious people do not stop when it gets hard. They adapt, they continue, they figure it out while struggling. They keep moving even when progress feels invisible. And invisible progress is still progress. Never forget that. The strongest people you admire today were once unknown, uncertain, ignored. Nobody believed in them at first either. They just mastered something rare, the ability to continue without immediate results. Most people quit because they cannot handle silence. They need validation to stay consistent. They need applause to feel valuable. But you cannot build greatness addicted to approval. The moment your happiness depends on other people noticing you, your focus dies. You become weak to opinions, weak to criticism, weak to rejection. That is why isolation can become a gift if you use it correctly. It teaches you how to rely on yourself. It forces you to face your thoughts without distraction. And that battle changes people forever. Because when you start winning against your own mind, the outside world becomes easier to conquer. Imagine what happens if you stop wasting energy trying to look successful and put all that energy into actually becoming successful. Imagine who you could become if you stayed disciplined for 1 full year. No excuses. No quitting every time life gets uncomfortable. Just relentless effort repeated daily. Most people will never do that. That is why average is crowded. That is why so many people stay stuck. They want results without sacrifice, confidence without struggle, success without pressure, but pressure creates strength, struggle creates identity, pain creates endurance. Every difficult moment is shaping the person you are becoming right now. So stop seeing your hard season as proof you are failing. Maybe it is proof you are finally being transformed into someone stronger than the version of you that started this journey. So stop seeing your hard season as proof you are failing. See it for what it really is, a filter. Life is quietly separating those who think about change from those who actually commit to it. And this separation is brutal because it does not announce itself. There is no warning, no dramatic moment. Just a slow distance growing between the people who act and the people who delay. At first, it does not look like much. A missed day here, a weak decision there, a small compromise that feels harmless. But those small moments accumulate. They start shaping your identity without asking for permission. One day you wake up and realize your habits have already chosen your future. That is the part most people never notice until it is too late. And the truth is, you already know this. You have felt it in your worst moments, that quiet voice telling you should be doing more, being more, becoming more. But instead of listening, most people negotiate with that voice. They delay it. They silence it with distractions. They promise it a better tomorrow while repeating the same patterns today. But that voice never disappears. It grows louder every time you ignore it. Because deep inside, you are not confused. You are not lost. You are in resistance. You already know what needs to change. You already know what is holding you back. The problem is not awareness. The problem is action. And action demands something most people are not ready to give. Discomfort without escape. That is where transformation begins, not in motivation, not in inspiration. In discomfort that you refuse to run from. Think about what happens when you stop escaping yourself. When you stop reaching for distractions every time life gets quiet. When you sit with your thoughts instead of numbing them. At first it feels unbearable. Your mind will fight back. It will try to pull you into old habits, old comforts, old excuses, because it wants safety, not growth. But if you stay there long enough, something changes. You start seeing clearly. You realize most of your limitations were never physical. They were mental agreements you kept renewing every day. You told yourself you were tired. You told yourself you were not ready. You told yourself you would start later. And slowly, those thoughts built a cage that felt real. But cages made of thoughts can be broken by actions. One decision at a time. One uncomfortable choice at a time. And the moment you begin acting despite how you feel, something powerful happens inside you. You stop identifying as someone who tries and starts becoming someone who does. That shift is invisible at first, but it changes everything that follows. Because identity drives behavior more than desire ever will. And right now, your identity is being shaped either by hesitation or by discipline. There is no neutral ground. Every day you either reinforce your old self or build a new one. Every choice is casting a vote for the type of person you are becoming. That is why time feels so unfair to people who wait, because time rewards consistency, not intention. You do not need a perfect plan to change your life. You need refusal, refusal to stay the same, refusal to accept low standards, refusal to let another week pass where you do nothing meaningful for your future. And that refusal is powerful enough to shift everything, because once you truly decide, not emotionally, but deeply, that you will no longer betray your own potential, your behavior begins to align with that decision. You stop asking for permission from your feelings. You stop waiting for perfect conditions. You start operating like your future depends on every single day. Because it does, and the world does not reward potential. It rewards proof of effort, proof of discipline, proof of resilience when things are not working. That is what separates people who stay stuck from people who rise. At some point, you have to become the person who continues even when nothing around you confirms that you are making progress. Because progress is often silent, invisible, slow, but deadly effective over time. And if you can stay in that silence long enough without quitting, you will eventually reach a point where everything changes. Not because the world suddenly becomes easier, but because you become harder to break, and that is the real advantage. Not talent, not luck, but the ability to keep going when everything inside you wants to stop. That is where your future is waiting. That is where your future is waiting, not in comfort, not in certainty, not in approval, but in the version of you that refuses to quit when everything feels uncertain and heavy. Because the truth is, nobody builds a different life while living the same patterns. Change always demands disruption. It demands breaking habits that feel safe but keep you weak. And this is where most people fail without even realizing it. They think failure is one big moment, one collapse, one mistake. But real failure is quieter than that. It is the slow acceptance of less effort, less discipline, less belief. It is the moment you stop trying to improve because this is just how life is. That sentence alone destroys more potential than any external obstacle ever could. Because once you accept limitation as normal, you stop fighting it. And the mind becomes comfortable in its cage, but you were not meant for that cage. You were meant for pressure. Growth, resistance, you were meant for the moments that force you to rise, not retreat. And every time you choose effort over comfort, you are rewriting something deep inside you. You are proving that your current state is not your final identity. That is what makes this dangerous. Not for the world, for your old self. Because the moment you start taking yourself seriously, everything changes. The excuses that used to control you begin to lose power. The distractions that used to win your attention start feeling empty. The habits that kept you stuck begin to feel too small for who you are becoming, and that discomfort you feel during change is not a warning. It is resistance, your old identity fighting to survive, because every time you choose discipline, you are killing the version of you that relied on delay. Every time you show up when it is hard, you are weakening the part of you that used to give up. And that internal conflict is what transformation actually feels like. It is not peaceful. It is not easy. It is war between who you were and who you are becoming. And the moment you understand that, you stop expecting growth to feel comfortable. You start expecting it to feel like pressure, like tension, like something inside you is being rebuilt from the ground up. That is why most people misunderstand successful people. They see the result, but not the war. They see confidence, but not the years of uncertainty. They see success, but not the silent repetition that created it. Nobody claps during the process. Nobody sees the early mornings. Nobody sees the private battles. But those are the moments that decide everything. And if you are still waiting for validation, you are delaying your own progress. Because validation always arrives late. It comes after results, after consistency, after proof, never before. And by the time it arrives, the real transformation has already happened in silence. So the question is never whether you are capable, The question is whether you are willing to stay consistent long enough for capability to turn into reality. Because talent without repetition is nothing, and repetition without discipline collapses under pressure. But discipline combined with repetition creates something unstoppable. It creates identity shift. It creates self-respect that no external opinion can shake. And once you reach that point, you stop negotiating with your life, you start directing it, you stop reacting to emotions. You start controlling actions, and slowly everything begins to align, not instantly, not magically, but inevitably, because consistency compounds in a way motivation never can. Every day you show up adds weight to your future. Every day you quit subtracts from it. There is no neutral day, only building or breaking. And if you truly understood how close you are to change, you would stop treating effort like an option. You would treat it like survival, because in a very real sense, your future self is depending on the decisions you make right now in silence. Not tomorrow, not when you feel ready, right now, and the longer you delay that truth, the heavier it becomes. But the moment you accept it, everything becomes simpler. You stop searching for motivation. You stop waiting for inspiration. You start moving because not moving is no longer acceptable. That is the shift. From thinking to acting. From hoping to building. From existing to becoming. And once that shift begins, nothing in your life stays the same again. And once that shift begins, nothing in your life stays the same again, because the moment you stop living by impulse and start living by intention, you enter a different level of existence. You no longer wake up and react to the day. You begin shaping it. You no longer ask what you feel like doing. You ask what must be done. That single change sounds small, but it rewires everything about who you are. Most people never reach this point because they are too attached to comfort, too attached to emotional safety, too attached to the idea that life should feel easy before they commit to it. But reality does not work that way. Life rewards those who move first, not those who wait for certainty, and uncertainty will always be there. You will never feel fully ready, never fully confident, never fully prepared. If you are waiting for a moment when fear disappears, you are waiting for a moment that does not exist. Fear does not leave, it only changes form when you move through it. That is the secret most people miss. Courage is not the absence of fear, it is action in the presence of it, and every time you act despite fear, something inside you hardens. Not in a negative way, in a powerful way. You become less controlled by emotion and more guided by direction. You stop collapsing under pressure and start adapting under it. That is the difference between people who dream and people who build. Because building a new life is not a moment of inspiration. It is a series of decisions made when nothing feels exciting. When nobody is watching, when there is no reward in sight, that is where real character is formed, and the uncomfortable truth is, most people are not failing because they lack ability. They are failing because they keep negotiating with their standards. One day they decide to change, the next day they allow themselves to slip. One day they feel strong, the next day they give themselves permission to be weak again. That cycle quietly destroys progress before it even begins. But the moment you stop negotiating, everything shifts. When quitting is no longer an option, your behavior becomes sharper. Your focus becomes cleaner. Your actions become more intentional. You stop wasting energy on decisions that do not matter and start protecting the few that do. And slowly, your entire identity begins to align with discipline instead of desire. And this is where life starts to feel different. Not easier, stronger, because strength does not come from perfect conditions. It comes from repeated exposure to difficulty without retreating. Every time you stay consistent when it is hard, you are building evidence that you can be trusted by yourself. And self-trust is the foundation of everything you want. Without it, you second guess everything. With it, you move without hesitation. That is why the hardest battles are internal. No one sees them, no one measures them, but they decide everything about your future. The moment you stop abandoning your own promises is the moment you begin to feel real power building inside you. And that power does not announce itself loudly. It grows quietly, in discipline, in repetition, in silence. Until one day you realize you are no longer the person who hesitates. You are no longer the person who overthinks. You are no longer the person who needs motivation to move. You have become someone who simply acts because that is who you are now. And that transformation feels almost unreal when it happens, because you remember the version of you who used to struggle just to start. The version who waited, who doubted, who delayed, and now that version feels distant, almost unfamiliar. Not because you became someone else, but because you finally stopped betraying yourself. That is the real turning point. When discipline becomes identity, not effort, not struggle, identity, because identity does not break under pressure. Identity does not need motivation. Identity does not depend on feelings. It simply continues to operate based on who you have decided to become. And once you reach that level, excuses lose their meaning entirely. There is no more "I will try." There is only action. There is only execution. There is only movement forward, even when it is uncomfortable. And that is the point where your life stops being something you hope for and starts becoming something you are actively building every single day. Not someday, not eventually, now.